got that old sweet and low down kind of tone there,
That's
don't
what I'm
you?
trying to do. It's actually dead guitar strings. That might be.
You know what? I've heard that. That's like the new thing.
Is it?
You know, absolutely. Well, hey, I wanted to thank you guys for coming to a very special evening. Normally it's Tuesday night, but it's Monday, right? You got nothing better to do. Well, actually, even if you did have something better to do, you decided to come here. The Main Stage Music live stream always promises to be a good time. I'm Brad, and you might notice that Jamie, always at my side, the boy wonder, my sidekick, you know, the reason you tune in, is not here tonight.
It's a shame.
I know.
A crying shame.
He had to work.
This is
work, man.
Obviously.
I've been busting it, you know. So instead, I have a very special guest, Chattanooga's own Mike Crowder.
Thank you very much. I'll try to fill Jamie's shoes. I'm not sure I could fill his hat. But.
Well, no, Jamie doesn't wear hats. So.
Well, no, but he's got that big brain.
This is
He's
true.
always thinking.
Kind of like, what was the name of that? This Island Earth. You know, those guys with the huge brains.
Sure. He looks a little like those guys.
So what we're discussing today is a subject that actually we've actually had people ask about in the store, which I know we don't sell this, but it is what inspires y'all, what inspires your craft. And that is the craft of songwriting. And our guest today, Mr. Crowder, is actually a very accomplished songwriter. He has many credits under his belt. And actually, he just had a show that I wanted to go to, by the way, which is why I knew about it.
Well,
but I had my dates mixed up.
Sure.
But at the MAC this last weekend with the Briars, as I recall, who's also a very wonderful little Americana duo.
Mm-hmm. And Randy Steele as well.
Oh, yeah. See, now I didn't know Randy.
Right.
So,
he's awesome.
Well, so anyways, that being said, I thought this would be a phenomenal subject to discuss, because one thing about our guests is that they are always full of opinions, okay? And our viewers as well. So, I mean, what we want for y'all to do is, if you have any questions, if you have any insights, if you have any opinions or questions for Mr. Crowder here about songwriting and so on, you know, please comment and let us know, because this is something that is, you know, one thing I'd say about songwriting is it is not a new craft by any stretch. I mean, you have authors and poets and bards, okay, that have been doing this as long as there's been language.
I think it's as old as humanity.
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, and honestly, songwriting is one of those things where it tells our story, okay, in a way that, as far as people are concerned, not academia or whatever, is how people can remember much more about a song than they can about, let's just say, a news report or historical events. And I was just thinking about that the other day with the song "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald," okay? Which, for all of you millennials or zennials or perennials or whatever y'all are called nowadays, I grew up in north central Wisconsin, and back in the 1970s there was this iron ore ship. See, where iron comes from is from the north. They dig up iron ore and they put them on these huge ships in the Great Lakes, and then they ship them down to the steel mills in Pittsburgh and so on. But you don't ever go out on those Great Lakes in the fall because the water gets crazy. Well, long story short, a big iron ore ship thought we could sneak one more thing in there, and they went out in Lake Superior, and these ships are immense. Think of it like an oil tanker. It's about the same size. And this ship snapped in half, and everybody on board died. It was tragic in the 70s. But most people don't know about the actual historical account, but they know the song.
Because they know part of the song, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
it's
exactly.
so long, nobody knows all of it.
Well, I know. I mean, but it's one of those things where Gordon Lightfoot was able to craft a song that kept, you know, a fairly, not forgettable, I guess you could say, tragedy, industrial tragedy, alive in the minds of people really for...
Till now.
Yeah, I mean, we're still talking about it.
Sure.
And so it's like songs have that power. And so I guess, you know, talking to yourself as a songwriter, someone who's been doing this for a long time, what would you say got you into music? Like, what got you into the idea of songwriting? I know I got into music.
Sure.
Because you're a guy. And all guys get into music for the same reason.
Girls.
I mean, it's as simple as...
Or the guys, we're not judging, but to get attention.
I mean,
that's
there you go.
thing,
you have bankable skills. Right?
That's exactly right. I would say from the time that I learned how to tune a guitar, I was ready to start writing songs. It was... There was a period in my life when I wanted to be, a hotshot lead guitarist, and I listened to a lot of the guys, Eric Johnson and Stevie Ray Vaughan and those guys who could really do it. But I was old enough to realize that the girls riding in the car got bored with that really fast. But what they liked were guys that sang songs they could sing along with and remember. And, speaking of memorable things like that, I started to catch on to the fact that if you could write a hook and put some words with it that people, enjoyed hearing, and more importantly, that people could sort of imagine their own reality around. Mm-hmm. So, a song like Edmund Fitzgerald is pretty detailed. He tells the story pretty much as it happened. Mm-hmm. Most country songs and pop songs and rock and roll songs try to be a little bit more vague so that people can put themselves in the story. So when we all listen to the same song, we're all picturing a different room or a different car, a different girl. A different dirt road. Yeah, they're all different a little bit. Different kinds of dirt. Some have gravel. Right. There's more weeds in others. But yeah, I started trying to create songs when I was probably before I got a driver's license, for sure. Sure. And did that for a long time until music really changed around me around the time I was in college. And I guess the classic college music was kind of my college music, REM, Replacements, The Clash.
Okay, so you were in college in the late 80s?
That's exactly right.
Oh, see, I thought we were closer in age than that.
I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's just I've got a great hairline.
Well preserved.
So, thank you. I'm 52 years old.
Holy smokes.
I know, it's nuts.
Yes, it's phenomenal.
Well, thank
you. Now, the music or the songs that were being written in the late 80s, okay, because most people don't think of the late 80s as a time for singer-songwriters. I mean, I think the biggest hit of 1989 was Every Rose Has Its Thorn off the Flesh and Bone album.
Which is, let's be honest, a whole lot more of a composition than probably the top hit of 2020 was, as schlocky as that is. But if you'll remember, and I know you do, there were a couple of parallel paths going on then. There was the college music scene, and there was the hair metal scene, but there was also this resurgence of roots music. And you mentioned John Hyatt in our last conversation.
The Y'all Caught album came out. It was right around that time.
Bring the Family was like 1985. Stolen Moments, I think, was 89. And Slow Turning was between,
Well, you also had, John Hyatt also wrote songs for here's y'all's little piece of tidbit. John Hyatt wrote the biggest hit of the movie Roadhouse.
Which one was that? Bonnie Raitt's song?
Angel Eyes.
Angel Eyes. He wrote that for Jeff Healey.
The Jeff Healey band, which was featured on They See the Light album, which was at 96.
I don't know, kids. If you haven't seen Roadhouse, just turn on TBS for 24 hours and you will see it. And it is the best bad movie extant. It's like a drug for me. I can't turn away. I watch it every time it's on.
Phenomenal. Because you think this guy knows Kung Fu. The guy across the lake has a monster truck.
The doctor is gorgeous.
Yeah,
in a small town.
Kung Fu, monster trucks, Jeff
Tai
Healey.
Chi, yeah. The whole thing.
Dude, it's got it all. Yeah. It's got everything.
Great line.
By the way, we got a lot of great viewers already, and people are already commenting and so on. Nothing overtly awesome to relay. One guy had to talk about how the Edmund Fitzgerald was a nautical tragedy. Yes.
Yes,
May
it was.
we never forget.
Yes.
And then, of course, Greg Sluter, thanks for commenting, by the way. He's just saying it was about big ballads back in the late 80s and so on.
For sure.
Because you had a lot of the party music by the hair bands in the mid part of the 80s, but then by the late part of the 80s, everybody was getting introspective. You had extreme going. Well, that was early '90s,
Right.
but you know.
But parallel to that, you had REM as well, and really, no one could tell you what those songs were about. You couldn't understand what Stipe was saying most of the time, but they had hooks. You know, even with no vocal hook, there was still a big guitar jangle kind of hook there, and that ethos in music has kind of continued. I think pop music these days doesn't have to be about anything.
So okay, that's an interesting kind of segue into another question.
Mm-hmm.
You have these different songwriters who, you know, more artistic than, maybe some are more artistic than others, you know. See, I grew up with the Eddie Vedder, Disturbed Poet, whatever. Yours was Michael Stipe. Although I did, you know, I was more of like a Out of Time and Automatic for the People.
There's that generation
REM
gap,
guy.
right?
And you were more of
Fables of the Reconstruction.
Yeah, okay. I'm still familiar with it. I can hang with you.
Yep.
I am a music geek, though. That's what I do.
Of course.
So
here we are.
But so that being said, you know, there were people who listened to the song because they were trying to unlock a mystery, which means that these guys were intentionally doing that. Okay.
Sure.
I mean, that was part of their shtick, you know.
Of course.
So in your songwriting, if we know that that's kind of the stuff that you know, cut your teeth on, how do you compose a song? Like, what's your process, if there is one, if that's fair?
I think these days, more than anything else, I try to keep my antenna up 24/7 for any idea that sounds like it belongs in a song. And I've found that if you do that, if you're actively engaged in it, you see ideas everywhere. They're hanging from trees. And I've studied a lot of other writers to try to figure out what makes this song memorable and the next track on the same album a lot less memorable. And so I think the songs that I've written in the last 10 or 15 years have kind of fallen into two groups. There are sort of you know, rock and roll, rowdy kind of songs that are just fun to sing and have some funny lines in them and sort of are breaking the action, compared to the more thoughtful, introspective kind of moodier songs. And so I think sometimes it's more fun to write a song that you think is really meaningful, but if you try to lay an hour's worth of that on an audience, it's rough. And so the prototype really, as I think about it, is that Bring the Family record that Hyatt made, where you've got, you know, A Thing Called Love and Lipstick Sunset on the same side of the same record, and they're totally different. You know, one is a party song and one is a ballad, and they're both crafted really well, but neither one of them require you to get out the dictionary or the thesaurus to figure out what the song's about. And,
you know, we could have a whole show just on John Hyatt.
Absolutely.
I mean, my wife and already knows my favorite John Hyatt album. She don't even have to.
Right.
Muddy Waters.
Crossing
Muddy Waters. That's a good one.
I can listen to that album front to back. It's got your pop sensibility, and you know, you got to lift up every stone. And I mean, even the title track is insane. Gone is just a fun.
Right.
The whole album is amazing, and yet the average person, has never heard of the thing.
Sure.
You know?
Right.
So at a certain point, you know, you have to look at what do you feel like a good songwriter. More people would know the song Angel Eyes that John Hyatt wrote than any of the songs that, you know. Now, you know, I've got my opinion on it, but why is it that one song will appeal to people on a wider audience than one that is more intimately crafted? In other words, the turn of phrase, the way they can paint a picture with words. Those are the ones that, more often than not, people would, I never heard of that song, you know.
Right.
But, oh, I like that song, you know.
Sure.
They'll know another song that's just. So why do you think? What connects the masses, okay, with one style of song but not with another?
That is the puzzle that I think everybody's trying to unlock. And what's interesting, if you break down some of the songs that everybody loves, like Dock of the Bay or someone to lean on. When you pull up the lyrics on Google or wherever, I would recommend any songwriter become familiar with the fact that every lyric that's ever been published is available at your fingertips, and you might as well go and sort of look at the infrastructure of a song and try to see how it's made. Those songs are so thinly written, there's just not much there. You can tell that they had one simple idea, and they matched that with a melody that sinks that idea straight into your solar plexus. Like, you don't engage your brain or your heart or any other part of your body. It just gets in your roots. Everybody is looking to recreate that, but you can't. I don't think you can outsmart it. I don't think there's a formula. I think that one of the most important things is that the sentiment in the lyrics and the melody of the song have to be a perfect match. So if you're writing sad lyrics with an upbeat tune, that would be an example of a mismatch. A really good match is something like Dock of the Bay, where really the song is about nothing at all. It's got a great hook in the bridge that gets you. Everybody learns the words the first time they hear it, but it just soaks into you. It's not like it comes through your ears, it comes through your skin, you know? And I wish I could do that.
No, see, I was thinking about this, okay? I love American country music. Now, that being said, people go, oh, you must love Eric Church and Jason Aldean, and no. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that they're not good at what it is that they do and what people buy it. And I want to share a little story with you. But it's like I've picked up, and I'm not picked up the formula, okay, that these people use. Let's start off by name dropping someone that does have both critical and popular appeal.
John Prine.
No, let's go a little lower brow than that.
Right.
Johnny Cash.
Right.
Waylon and Willie. Hank. You know, you can drop a name like that. Let's drop a corporate product, okay, that has, we'll say, common denim country fried gravy covered appeal. So Budweiser, Jack Daniels, Marlboro Reds, Yeti coolers, you know, Real Tree Camo. You know, just pick your poison, okay? Then you put yourself in a very, we'll just say, contrived situation, okay? You were going in for that first kiss, or you were nervous because she looked so good, and then what did she wear? Well, something that you wouldn't want your daughter to wear, okay? And if you just kind of weave all these things together, and then of course you got to put some sort of southern sounding place. So just pick anything that's either like we'll say a geographical thing. So a ridge, a cliff, a tree, an orchard, whatever.
Tailgate.
Yeah, you know, a red dirt road.
Sure, right.
You know, anything like that. And then you should put it in 4/4 timing, play it in G, maybe capo at the second fret if you want to sound different, and go. And then of course, if you're a millennial, you have to have the millennial whelp, as I've heard it referred to, which is the okay. So somewhere in the song. So effectively, if you want to write a hit song in country or pop music, you incorporate that stuff. And it doesn't matter if you're doing country music or if you're doing a more of a urban city life type of thing. But it's just that your stone faded Levi's will be your Gucci bag, okay? Or your what do you want to say, tobacco spit or whatever is going to be Cavassier and soda, okay? But the point is it's still the same thing. You know, they deal with the same basic thing. It's a formula, and then they toss the millennial whelp, which is in, it seems like, all these pop hits.
Right.
And so there is a formula, okay? Right. As far as timing, nobody's pulling off like Peter Gabriel, Salisbury Hill 6/8 timing in any of their songs, okay? It's all this, you know, that kind of straightforward stuff.
Right.
Now, I've thought about this, and I thought, well, why is it, you know, like with you had said that, you know, it may well, it could be like the magic bullet. Who figures this stuff out? There's a part of me that kind of thinks, well, maybe it's something simpler than that.
It's possible. I want to make a slight counter argument.
Okay.
As much as bro country makes my skin crawl, I think if you look at the history of popular country music, it has always been such. And the formula for popular country music, when Hank Williams and Bill Monroe were popular, they were writing songs to succeed on the Louisiana Hayride and the Grand Ole Opry.
True.
When they wrote a new song, if it wasn't going to get the crowd stomping and dancing at the Opry or the Hayride or transmit across the radio. And that's why so many of Hank Williams songs use the same melody and progressions, because he could write a hit, and if it worked, he would write a different lyric to it 6 weeks later, and they'd roll out another single. And as much as I love Hank Williams, and as revered as he is now, you can see that all the way through the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. One thing,
I guess, and I know what you're saying, but maybe some people are better at hiding it than others.
It's
like,
possible.
for example, you take George Jones, for example. He, I think it was his first #1 hit, 1955. Do you remember what that was?
I do not.
White
Lightning. Yeah.
Okay, so that was his big hit. They're like, George, we need another hit. And, this is before he's getting drunk and beating his wife kind of thing. So he had to come up with something else. So he basically just did the same song, but he called, what was it called? Who Shot Sam?
Okay.
It's the same song.
Right.
Okay. And I know that Bill Haley and the Comets did that too. There, of course, the only song y'all can probably remember is Rock Around the Clock. That guitar solo is the same exact guitar solo as a hit, a song, let's not call it a hit, that they did the following year. The same note for note solo.
Sure.
And so now, so I see what you're saying in the regard of, hey, we need something that's going to appeal to the, but you listen to a song like Kalijah, okay? Talking about, well, are we allowed to talk about Kalijah?
Probably not.
Okay, so let's not talk about Kalijah. It's a great song
Jambalaya.
for people. Yeah, Jambalaya. Here we
go.
go. But Kalijah's a great song.
Yeah.
Just watch it.
Sure.
Just don't
Right.
Cancel me. But anyways, Jambalaya, great song. He's from Alabama.
Sure.
I mean, what does this guy know about jambalaya, catfish pie, and Philly gumbo?
But his
right?
weekly gig was on the Louisiana Hayride.
True,
so
but
Jambalaya
I'll tell you, how challenging would it be for a guy from North Alabama to sing about something he has no respect for, or not respect for, but no,
Sure.
I mean, it's pretty impressive, I have to say,
Well, and we forget that when Willie Nelson delivered Red-Headed Stranger, they turned it down. They wouldn't release it, and that's considered to be his best original work, right? Waylon Jennings had to leave Nashville to do what he wanted to do. He reinvented this the outlaw country music, but before that, Willie and Waylon were both playing the paint-by-numbers country music system in Nashville. And so I think it's been that way forever. I grew up like I said, when I was a kid in the 70s, I listened to a lot of WDOD country radio, and there were Don Williams songs, and there were other songs.
Great songwriter,
there was some great stuff, but there was also some super schlocky stuff, You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, and it's just mainstream country music has always been that way. And so I think we can get upset now that it sounds a little too much like rock and roll or rap or whatever, but
well, so let me share you my story
about
the Eric Church thing. So my cousin, and he hates when I tell this story, but he's not watching, so who cares? My niece got married, and because I own a music store, I must also be this amazing wedding DJ. I am an amazing wedding DJ.
Yeah.
But anyways, she said, hey, I want you to DJ my wedding. Okay. So I bring, this is back in the iPod days, okay?
Yeah.
For all you youngsters, it was a small box. We could, what you'd play your music on.
Right.
And I'm playing all sorts of tunes. Well, my cousin comes up and goes, hey, play some Eric Church. And I'm like, so dude, we could go out in a parking lot and write a better song than that guy. And he kept a straight face, okay? And because he's nowhere near as sarcastic and sardonic as I am. And he goes, well, my wife and I have shared a lot of amazing memories and experiences, and Eric Church is kind of music we were listening to at those times, so it's always meant a lot to us. And dude, I felt like I was
Sure.
2-inch tall. Because I felt I just insulted this guy from a craft standpoint. Because as someone who's written a song or two myself, and you know, I like creative things. I listen to stuff and I'm like, oh, that was creative. I like how they did that. And when I hear something that's not creative, I'm like, this is lame. And so I insulted this, but this guy said, man, I've had so many great memories of this song. And I just felt like garbage because I insulted something that he had positive memories on.
Right.
So I guess with the craft of songwriting too, like you can talk about what was, you know, big, like, you know, what was popular and so on, and what has inspired you, and what good songwriting or bad songwriting means. But what does that even mean to someone, you know, who's not consuming it? We're creating it. Well, I'm good and he's bad.
Correct.
Well, how stupid is that?
Not to mention that Eric Church has probably helped you sell a lot of beginner guitars over the years. You know, I mean, when those guys become popular, I'm just happy they're holding a guitar because, you know, 10 years ago, the story was no one's going to want to play real instruments anymore. They're just going to program everything on the computer. And I like seeing kids want to learn how to play these things, or the bass or the keyboards or whatever. You know?
So we got some other great comments coming in. Greg chimed in and he had a question for you. He said, does he write externally or internally or both? We have singer-songwriters that write from personal victories and tragedies.
Right.
So how would you interpret that question? Internally, externally?
I think that's a great question. I have gone through phases in my life of writing in different ways. And for a long time, as I was learning to use my voice better, I was engaged with trying to sing properly, and I hadn't done that up until about 6 or 8 years ago. I was writing a lot of songs that I thought were really meaningful, but I was writing them in someone else's point of view because I didn't want to be that vulnerable. And I was writing songs that trying to experience things that other people had gone through. I guess that's what he would call external.
The Edmund Fitzgerald is an external song.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Lately, especially, you know, during the pandemic, I hate to refer to the pandemic, but it's what we've all been living with the last 20 years, 20 months. I've written more songs that are more meaningful to me, that feel a little bit more personal and real. So I think a talented or a proficient writer can do both. There are a lot of folks that make their living doing one or the other. You mentioned a lot of those rock ballads in the 80s that were just giant hits. It was Diane Warren that, you know, wrote most of those, and I've just got to assume that not every popular Aerosmith power ballad was actually lived by Diane Warren. You know, she was coming up with situations and writing around them.
I'm gonna have to look her up. That's actually the first time I'm not.
I hope I have her name correctly. She is probably the most successful songwriter of the last 30 years, if I had to guess.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know there's an extremely successful songwriter from the Hickson area, Kelly Lovelace, that
I did not know that.
He was 1 year older than me at Hickson, and he went to Belmont and had the good fortune of becoming close friends with Brad Paisley. So several of the Brad Paisley hits from the first few records were co-writes. And he's had something like 20 or 22 number ones in Nashville, and he's one of the preeminent.
Now, I'll tell you what I hate about hearing this, okay, is that it is 2020. Is it 2021?
Still one? Yeah. Right.
I mean, honestly, the last couple of years.
7 more weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. And I'm just now hearing about this.
Yeah. He comes home every year and does a golf tournament and a concert for Bethel Bible Village. So if you get.
Well, no, I mean, but that's disturbing to me because this is the only way I've ever made a living is being a professional musician. Okay? That's it. High school, okay? And this is the first I'm hearing of this gentleman. And so I'm embarrassed. And so if he's watching or if anybody knows him is watching, please tell him to holler at me because I would love to get insight on that kind of stuff and hear more about it. And you know, that brings up another question I was thinking about. Now, this is a very off whatever.
Sure.
So, like, you know, obviously everybody knows this pandemic has been going on now, slogging on for one reason or another. And everyone seems to have their opinions on this and that. So I was thinking, like, from a perspective, I think all creative had thought about, well, how is the pandemic inspiring me? As terrible as that sounds, this could be the silver lining in a dark cloud, right? Is that it has inspired people to be creative, okay? So you've got people who are staying at home, perhaps in the early part of it, and writing songs, maybe learning guitar, maybe, you know, thinking about starting that business and whatever it is. But, you know, interestingly enough, I wanted to know, well, what creative explosion happened the last global pandemic? And I'm not talking about SARS or whatever. I'm talking about actual...
Like Spanish flu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was 1918, 1920. So I started looking up, and I wanted to find out, well, what creative things happened in 1918 with that whole span. And would you be surprised to know that little to nothing was done about that, or in still forgotten about? A lot of people call it the forgotten pandemic, okay? Even though from like a intensity standpoint, I think it was like the second only to the bubonic plague, the Black Death. Even, you know, and I don't know if you've ever watched, if you watch HBO at all, but there was the show Boardwalk Empire.
Right.
Okay. And that show is very historically accurate as far as the music of the time, styles, clothing, really every little detail. But nothing was said in the entire show about the Spanish flu, which would have been going on at the time that the show was, you know, taking place. So it's kind of like, I wanted to research, well, why did people not, why is there not more art, more expression in one way or the other, and actually not many even books written on the pandemic in 1918. And now, I mean,
I can speak for myself in the first 6 months or so when I was basically stuck at home with my family. I wasn't very creative, and I wondered why. And what I eventually landed on was that I wasn't seeing anything different or anyone different any given day. I usually draw my energy from interactions with other people, and I've gotten song ideas from overhearing conversations in the line at Walmart or whatever. And none of that was happening. It was the same day over and over and over again. So that Groundhog Day aspect of it made it kind of a dry spell, and I ended up just digging back through old notebooks to find ideas that I'd abandoned before and spending that time trying to develop those. Yeah.
So really your creative nature during the relatively short, but still there for most people, kind of cloistering, was really stifled by the protection that you were getting from being away from people.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
A more disciplined person might have been able to come up with some ideas, but
I came up with an idea.
Yeah.
I never put it to paper because I didn't get a day off. See, there's some of us who had to work every single day because my boss is a real jerk. You know who my boss is? You guys. So here's my idea.
Yeah.
Quarantine. Okay. So C-O-R-N-teen. All right.
You've nailed it already.
Well, spoken in, of course, being sung by the perspective of someone who's not so bright.
Yeah.
He's thinking with the wrong head. Okay. So he goes to his baby, who he hadn't seen in a good while.
Yeah.
He says, "Baby, I got the fever for you." She says, "Get away from me. You need to be in quarantine." And he's like, doesn't understand. Quarantine? And then he accuses her, "Baby, why you got to be so mean? Put me in quarantine.
Oh,
Can't you see I got the fever?" You know?
And the fever is the reason.
And the fever is the reason why she wants nothing to do with the guy.
I can see it working. I can see it working on.
So just give me a writer credit, any of y'all who, you know, come up with my quarantine song. Because again, it's a classic hillbilly tune written from that perspective. Okay, now we have a couple of really good comments, by the way. Ron Wallen, by the way, thanks for commenting, Ron. Inspired writing is a beautiful thing. Performing the song with the real emotion it inspires is what makes it believable. Personal songs are the best. You know, I can't agree with you more, because if you're writing about, I mean, let's say I was writing about the tragedy and the terrible experiences I had as a, I don't know, 5th century slave in Mesopotamia, I don't know how much you guys would believe it, because I wasn't that guy, you know? So, I mean, And then, of course, he also wanted to type in that nursery rhymes were inspired by terrible things or horrible things. He used the word. Ring around the roses, pocket full of posers, ashes, we all fall down.
Yeah.
Now, that was about, was that about the Black Plague?
I think it
I thought it was.
yeah.
Yeah, because wasn't it written in like, well, when was the Black Plague? 1600s?
No, it was like 1540.
1540s?
1547, 1551, something.
There was only like 3 radio stations back then.
I was going to say.
it was a hit on all
know,
3 of them.
Yeah, I know. But, I have also thought about nursery rhymes too. And what was Rub-a-Dub-Dub all about?
Okay, move on.
3 men in a tub? And who do you think they be? The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Throw them out!
Yeah.
Knaves, all 3.
Greg Sluter also
Don't get it.
another comment.
Greg typed in... The song that currently spoke to me that contrasts want and loss is performed by Jake Owens, who's a bro country guy.
Uh-huh.
Wrote by Travis Meadows, is What We Ain't Got. And probably the only song that I will stop and listen to, and I don't listen to too much radio airplay. The song just hits every button I had. It had relevance. Well, now you've made me want to go and listen to a Jake Owens song.
Wow.
I was going to say, I don't know. So anyways, you write from, your own personal type of thing. One thing I guess I also had thought about is how music has inspired people, you could almost argue movements, right? So when people think about Woodstock, Summer of Love and all this kind of stuff. I was even in country music. My wife never had heard the song "The Pill" by Loretta Lynn, which is pretty trashy if you really think about it.
Sure.
But I mean, that being said, do you feel that artists or songwriters have any kind of what's the right word or right way of phrasing it, but culpability in what it is that they're delivering to the masses? Because I know there's a lot of discussion about art.
Yeah.
And, whether it's violent video games make kids violent or, and we all know that if you're parents, okay, if you're humans, if you hang around with a bunch of people who, speak a certain way, you'll find yourself speaking a certain way. And so if you put a bunch of art in whatever sense it is in your head, you might start thinking a certain way. And I've even heard that Hitler was inspired by the works of Wagner, okay? Which is why, by the way, for all you guys who like the Blues Brothers, they chose to use the Wagner song when
they were hunting for
the Illinois Nazis were chased. For all of y'all who've seen that movie, that's why. There's the joke there.
Right.
But, so as far as an artist or a songwriter, do you think, or do you ever think in ways of like, I'm going to write this song, but you know what? I'm going to be careful with how I phrase something because I don't want someone to either misinterpret my meaning or my words, or do you listen to music and go, that's kind of irresponsible?
That's really interesting. I think probably the arguments on both sides apply mostly to the rap world these days because the Travis whoever that the guy just had the concert over the weekend where 8 people were crushed to death at the concert.
Well, also
in
weren't
Houston,
some people injected with fentanyl?
I don't know about that. I haven't read anything about that at all.
Yeah, I heard people were injecting people. Yeah, but still, I mean,
what I have heard is that that the actions of the crowd at the show are something that he promotes. He promotes people busting through the gates. He promotes people charging the stage. He promotes everyone to getting all that charged up. So this is the first time or second time that it's resulted in a tragedy. The first time was 2017 when someone fell out of the balcony and is paralyzed because of it.
My goodness.
So obviously there's going to be tremendous legal liability for the people putting it on. But I think that performers have a liability, and I think that writers do too, but probably we need space in society for the most fearless artists. We need the artists that are going to make the visual art and the songs and the movies and the records now that are going to change things. I think that if you look back at some of the stuff that Sex Pistols and the Clash released,
Sure, yeah.
you know, they, I think, were trying to shock you know, parents and kids, and they were trying to create that division between kids and parents that originally started probably with Elvis doing race music and people not wanting their kids to be involved with that. Those are the terms of the day, race music and such. But
No, I mean that's
yeah,
a fair. You know.
yeah. I think probably the people I respect most are the ones that are able to put those concerns aside and really create what they're drawn to create. But obviously that can easily tip over into just shock for
Well,
shock
like
value.
you mentioned the
know.
Sex Pistols,
Right.
wasn't it just Johnny Rotten who was in the news recently about his, you know, of course, very, I mean, he's always been against the establishment. And so now you have a popular thing about mandates and you
Right.
better take this medicine or else or
Right.
whatever. And then, of course, social shaming if you choose not to do that or whatever. And so he's been a very public advocate against that because his entire career has been basically about biting his thumb at whatever. And so I guess in some circles may not have aged very well,
Right.
okay, in that particular regard. So, you know, you could say the same thing about some art that was done in the 1960s and so
Right.
on, where people are about free love and stuff. Now they're all like,
Right.
you
Didn't turn
might
out so
want to
great.
know who you're, you know,
Right.
knocking boots with.
Sure.
And so at a certain point, you know, I guess I listen to and see artists. As an artist myself, I'm an artist, you know, and I think, well, is there some sort of responsibility to the artist? Like we can, like first of all, just so you all know, I am all about free expression. Do what you want. I may not agree with it or like it. Okay, I may hate it. I may tell my kids, we ain't listening to that in this
Right.
house. Okay, but I'm all about it. Okay, because anybody creating is better than not.
Right.
Right. But in the same right, sometimes we get into this mode where it's like, where did this come from? Why? How did this? You know, and then you're kind of like listening. The kids over there listening to stuff where they're shooting people and being violent and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And I don't know where this came from, Mom. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, there's two interesting examples. I guess one example really, but it happened twice. There are two Jason Isbell compositions that were written and recorded on his solo records that had strong curses in them. And he took the risk to put that on his album and to realize that that was going to cost him potential radio play or potential, you know, I always like to buy music and give it to clients for Christmas. And that was one reason I had to skip over one of his records, you know, because
Sure.
I couldn't send the F-bomb out to, you know, 100 clients,
There
right?
you go.
Yeah.
F you. It's like, no thanks.
But two of his most popular and best songs have been covered by some of these modern country artists, and they both asked for permission to change those lyrics. And they did, and they had huge hits with them. And Jason has been really open in saying, those guys bought my house. Like, my records did not pay for my house. The records they made that sold 10 million copies each paid for my house. So if they want to change a word, that's their artistic decision about how to cover the song that I wrote. When it was my turn to make the decision, I did what I wanted to do. I can't point the finger at them and tell them not to do it, and I'm certainly not going to tell them don't record my music.
Yeah,
because it's
absolutely.
been extremely profitable for
Well,
him.
and
So.
you know, you think about it. Now, of course, who's going to admit this? I mean, is he going to admit that, man, I sure wish I wouldn't have done that? Because did those words or whatever really, were they so integral into the song that, I couldn't possibly come up with another, you know, single syllable, you know, aggressive word to get my feelings out there.
Right.
So it may have been like a comment of embarrassment too. You know,
Who knows?
like, I sure
Yeah.
wish I wouldn't.
Right.
Now Ron had to chime in. He says, "I hate to say it, but shock is a gimmick. It usually accompanies pretty sorry music that they just have no other way to sell." Just his opinion.
You know, I honestly think that is a very thin line. You know, it's almost impossible to judge it correctly in the moment. There are some pieces of art that we look back and realize were shocking and changed things in that world. But there's a whole lot more that are just reaching for ways to get attention. And I can't disagree with him. I think that there are probably, if you look at Banksy's career as a visual artist, there are certain things that he's done to make a point and certain things that he's done to poke a hole in the idea of making a point.
Yeah, no doubt. He also had to chime, we all want what we ain't got. It's an awesome representation of the human condition. Very artistic song, especially for country music. And Morgan Wallen covered one of those songs. I'm not sure which one he's talking about.
I don't either. Well, the one thing I could tell from these comments is you've got some really great viewers. I mean, you've got people that are really dialed into the conversation.
This is Main Stage, not Guitar Center. These are actual,
I've never been to that place.
Yeah,
What's it like?
These are the real folks here, and we do deal with a lot of creators and so on, and we're very proud of them. And of course, we try to do our best to help them out. Now, one thing that I wanted to treat people to, and again, this is completely, this is a treat for us,
right?
Is you brought your guitar. Now, I really wish that we had, so first of all, if you haven't done it already, just open another tab on your computer or your phone and go to, is it Bandcamp?
Yeah, MikeCrowder.bandcamp.com.
MikeCrowder.bandcamp.com.
Bandcamp. Correct.
Once when I was in band camp. But anyways, you go and you like his stuff and you whatever. I've listened to a lot of his tracks and they're great. I mean, excellent songs. And I've known Mike for a while, although here's the sucky thing about being like an old responsible person. Is you don't really get to hang out with people that you like to hang out with, and so you have to come up with things like this to get your friends to come out and hang out with you, and then it's work, so it's okay, But in the same right, I know that you're busy, I'm busy, everybody's busy, okay. But in the same right, we've been friends on Facebook for a long time, and this guy is hilarious, okay.
I haven't been funny tonight. I feel like I've let you down.
No, we'll have him back for sure if you guys for sure want. Well, I think it'd be awesome to treat these people to one of your songs.
I'll be happy to.
If you feel so inclined.
I have to now.
Well, now,
clearly.
yeah,
I've been sitting here leaning on my old guitar.
So without further ado, now you've got a beautiful Collings guitar there.
I do. I was very fortunate to find this with
seam separation.
The thing about Collings guitars, they sound great, they play great, they never get played. They get bought by attorneys and dentists and people that don't play. So I was able to find this guitar at a very nice price because of the damage, and I took it up to Fretted Instruments in Sparta and had them re-glue the tie. That's right. Yeah. It's got the pickup system that I wanted in it. It just, I got it under $2,000. Never.
Man.
The replacement cost is like
no. They're way up there,
it's
man.
Crazy.
They're incredible.
I would never pay that much for a guitar, but I like this one. I was really. My family's been lucky. Our biggest loss during the pandemic was John Prine, probably.
Huge loss.
Around the time that John passed, I had a dream that inspired a song, and I was trying to write about a very narrow moment in breakup. And there's so many ways to look at a breakup, and everybody's got their own breakup stories to tell. But the particular narrator of this song was, he keeps forgetting that they've broken up, and it hits him like a ton of bricks every time it comes around. So it's called Rude Awakening. Got a friend who surfs beside me in my dream zone. He glides across the water, eating on an ice cream cone. He's always there beside me as I walk across the crest of the wave, searching for some vague someone it seems I was put out there to save. But no one's there, and my buddy nods and cuts in towards the shore. I wake up thinking maybe somehow I'm not lonely anymore. It's just the kind of thing I'd always wanna tell you, and I know you'd want me to share. I roll over and I stare into the closet, but your shoes and hats and jackets still aren't there. It seems so rude, it's a rude awakening. Met a dog along my walk who reminded me of you. He was a little shy at first, but he got friendly pretty soon. And we walked along and talked about how nice our respective days had been, with a tacit understanding that each of us could use a new friend. Suddenly a kid dragging a leash ran up to me. I can't say when I've ever seen anybody so relieved. It's just the kind of thing I'd always want to tell you, and I know you'd want to hear from me. I come home through the back door with all those little scratches that your beagle used to leave. It seems so rude, it's a rude awakening. How long should it take to get used to losing weight when it's 97 pounds that left me hanging like an open gate through which all the joy I'd ever hoped to find recently escaped? How long till I realize these stories never getting told? That you won't sit and listen in your place across from me. Your chair is staying cold. It seems so rude, it's a rude awakening. It seems so rude, it's a rude awakening.
Excellent, man.
Thank
what a
you.
wonderful tune. That's great.
I appreciate it,
And I
man.
like that, the term of rude awakening is something that we all can kind of connect with, and so it makes it actually a pretty memorable hook.
Oh,
so
thanks.
I dig that.
I was kind of trying to capture some of John Prine's absurd humor alongside the tender feelings. I think one
Sure.
thing Prine was cool about is that he realized that laughing and crying aren't really opposites. It's like if you laugh hard enough, you end up crying, and if you cry hard enough, you often end up laughing. And he would just cram the weird parts of his songs and the tender parts so close up against each other that they'd always catch you by surprise, even if you'd heard it 20 times.
Well, and I'll tell you, it's amazing that when he wrote Hello in There,
Right.
which is a song that really you'd think was written by someone in a much advanced age. He was like 19.
Right.
I mean, have you guys heard that song? If you
Yeah.
haven't, shame on you. You've
Right.
not done your homework. Go and listen to some. My wife and
Sam
I.
Stone. It was written around the
that
same
was
time.
another
Yeah.
one. Yeah, we. What did we listen to? Storm Windows the
Yeah.
other night. That was his 7th album. But no, John Prine was an absolute treasure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for coming out tonight. No, thank you guys. I know we went over a little bit, but when you have someone of this kind of resource here, you gotta take advantage
Like,
of it.
I'm no Jamie.
So-
Everybody knows
Oh,
I'm no
I
Jamie.
know you're no Jamie. But again, thank you guys so much. Next week we'll be back at regular Bat channel Tuesday evening. But in the same right, stay safe, keep creating. That's what this is all about. And appreciate you guys for watching. And again, make sure to check out Mike Crowder on Bandcamp and all the other kind of places you can check things out.
Super.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good evening.
Appreciate it. That was fun.
Absolutely.
At some point, the little condom jumped off my microphone, so
no
we just
biggie.
need to
It just
find
means
it.
it'll
Oh,
be-
it's right there.